Hi, everyone, and welcome to my talk, which is all about the art of making UI buttons move. I'm so stoked to see all of you here, and hopefully, by the end of the talk, you'll take an interest in UI animation for games and UI games in general. UI art and animation may not be as flashy as the other art disciplines in game development, but it plays a very important role in making the player's experience the best that it can be. Okay, so before I proceed any further, let me just introduce myself quickly so that I won't be just some rando. My name is Emmanuel Vasquez Jr., and I'm a visual artist, and I'm also an animator. I'm originally from the Philippines, but I've been living in sunny Brisbane for around 8 years now. And I've only been able to visit lovely Melbourne 2 weeks ago, and I absolutely made sure that they take a photo at the ACMI so that I can add it to my slide here today. That's me. That was taken by my lovely daughter when we were here, and we absolutely enjoyed the exhibit there. You guys that are from Melbourne, you're pretty lucky that you have that here. And yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about myself as well, how I got about at this stage in my career, because there's a lot of people who ask me most of the time, like, how do you become a UI artist? I even ask that to other colleagues, and every time I ask that, I get a different answer, because I don't think you really envision yourself becoming a UI artist when you first want to embark into game art. So yeah, I've been working in the games industry for over a decade and a half now, and I've worn a few hats in the art department. I've been a 2D artist, 2D, 3D animator, and my all-time favorite UI artist. I worked for different game development studios around the world, and the notable ones that I worked at as a UI artist are Ubisoft. I worked for the Abu Dhabi studio and did a whole lot of UI for a game that really relied on a whole lot of UI, which was CSI Hidden Crimes. And then from very, very sunny Abu Dhabi, I traveled to Australia to work for Game Love Brisbane. Yeah, some Game Love Brisbane guys were there. So at Game Love Brisbane, I worked on almost all of the studio's released games, which are the action-packed Zombie Anarchy, the hard-hitting Apple Arcade exclusive, which was Ballistic Baseball, and lastly, the multi-awarded Apple Arcade version of the cult classic, the Oregon Trail, which I believe is now up for another award at the AGDA, so go Game Love Brisbane team. Earlier this year, though, I decided to embark on a new adventure and joined Blizzard Entertainment. So I'm currently working as a senior UI artist for the World of Warcraft team. And so far, I've contributed UI art for Wrath of the Lich King Classic, which was released 2 weeks ago. And I'm doing UI art and animation for World of Warcraft Dragonflight, which will be launching next month on the 28th of November. Shameless plug over there. And it's great to be working on this particular expansion of World of Warcraft, since we are doing a major overhaul on the UI, which is really exciting, because yeah, UI for that one hasn't been touched for almost 2 decades. So I think it's about time that we refresh it. All right, I've always been asked if I miss, doing the other art disciplines in game development, and my answer has always been that I just find creating UI more fulfilling. Having experienced different art roles in game development, I found UI art to be the most demanding among the other disciplines, as it requires proficiency in animation, concept art, graphic design, and motion to be, really successful in the craft. To tell you honestly, before I delve into the world of games UI, I really thought it was just, all about making the UI buttons default state, the press state, and the release state. But boy, was I in for a surprise. I think if there are UI artists here or UI engineers who really didn't expect You didn't expect that that's what they'll be doing. I think you can relate to that. And also, before I proceed, I'd like to point out this early that for my talk today, I won't be using any materials from the companies I've listed here, but I'll be using materials from another project that I was a part of creating. All right, so just a quick overview of what I'll be sharing today. I've divided the talk into 3 parts, and in part 1, what's it all about? I'll be talking about the things you must do before embarking on creating the UI animation for your UI screen. Part 2, lights, camera, action, has the main bulk of the talk, and I'll be walking you through how to go about making UI animations for a UI screen. Part 3, outro, would just be the summary of the whole talk, and if we have some time, if we're not that hungry yet, we can do some Q&As. All right, so what's it all about? For every project that I've worked on, I usually ask this question first before I start working on it. I bet you guys also ask this first when starting your own projects. It's the same question I asked myself when I started to figure out what to present here. What's it gonna be all about? Like, what's the talk all about? So this talk is all about making a UI screen look polished through motion and careful choreography of all the UI elements to create an immersive experience for the player. So for my talk today, I've decided to go through the important aspects of UI animation in games by walking you through how I went about making a particular UI project that I have done in the past. I'll be talking about how each UI element on the screen has to have a purpose and what its role is on the stage. I'll explain how I treat those UI elements like actors who play important roles. Hopefully, their acting would be to your liking. And so now, you might be asking, what's the UI project all about? So here are some words from the team that worked on this UI project. This project was fun to do, says a character designer. Not an inch of stress was experienced. Wow. Some kind words from a UX designer. Fast art and animation approvals, says a happy game artist. So, awesome. All positive feedback, which would only mean that we've got an awesome project to talk about today. A bit of an info, though. It was a one-man team project. I was the character designer, the UX designer, and game artist. So, but don't worry. These are all still very reliable feedback. All right, so really, what's the UI project all about? It's a personal project about the casual games level up screen. This is a personal project that I still have in the works, and I'm planning to pursue in the future. And hopefully, it sees the light of day. In a game studio setting, though, I would say that this is the time when a producer puts in a task for you, and that task would be to create a level up UI screen. The next thing to do, once you figure out what UI project you'll be doing, is to determine the information and the UI elements that will be displayed. And in our case, it's the level up UI. So now you'll be asking, what's the level up UI all about? Well, in a game studio setting, most of the time, you'll get a wireframe like this from a game designer or a dedicated UX designer. So as per this design, the important aspects to highlight in the screen are the level up number, star achievements, then you got score and currency, then rewards, a scrollable list for your friends, and CTAs, like call to action buttons. It is important to know the hierarchy of the information displayed on the screen to determine the pace, timing, and complexity of the animation you are going to use for each element. So for this level up screen, I'm thinking that we go big and nuts on the intro to highlight the level up number. And then we show the stars in a very celebratory manner. And then punch up the animation on score and currency. And then we start to slow it down a bit on rewards, ease it up while showing the scrollable friends list, and then finally show the call to action buttons. Once you've sorted out what the UI screen is all about, it's now time to put on your artist hat and then ask, what's the art and creative direction all about? In most game studios, this phase is when the UI art team goes ahead and talks with art and creative directors about the game's vision. The UI art in the game must align with the art direction of the game to make it mesh smoothly with the other art elements, and it also must align with the creative vision to make it immersive. So the pillars for the art and creative direction for this project, we have, it's going to be minimalist, it's going to be about paper cutouts, and it's going to have energetic UI motion. I'm a big fan of minimalist shapes and single color graphic design palettes, so this project tries to encompass just that. To attain simple shapes that I wanted, I opted to go with anything that references paper, like origami and paper dolls. I wanted it to look like cutouts, and the interfaces feel to be energetic to create a balance of sorts. So simple shapes combined with interesting and creative motion. For this project, I explored different character designs and UI elements with simple basic shapes. But I won't delve much into character and UI art since this talk is all about UI motion. In the end, I picked up the ninja character since I felt it's got the simple shapes I wanted. Now, since you've sorted out what the level up UI is all about and what the art direction is all about, it's now time to dress up the UI wireframe. So you might be asking, what's dressing it up all about? In a game production setting, this is when UI artists make the UI wireframe pretty. We know the art direction, so now it's time to incorporate that into the wireframe. We've got the ninja character we can add into the UI screen. Then we have some shuriken we can use as stars for achievement. We got these icons in simple shapes we can use as reward items. And we've got these sharp rectangular shapes that look like cutouts that we can use as backgrounds. If you're the one designing the UI screen, it's good to plan ahead how the UI elements will move and how they will help the player understand the screen further. It becomes a bit trickier though if you did not design the screen but were tasked to animate it, but you'll actually get used to it. Just remember to have a close collaboration with the UI artist or the designer who did it. All right, it usually takes a few iterations before a UI gets fully approved. Like you'll have your final file before it gets approved. But a good thing for this project, I'm a one-man team, so all we need to do now is combine the art and wireframe, and it'll get approved. And now that you're armed with the knowledge about the level up screen, what the level up screen is all about, what the art direction is all about, and you've got your level up screen all approved already, it's time to go to part 2 of this talk. And that's animating the UI screen. So lights, camera, action. Just gonna grab some water. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll be treating each UI element on the screen like actors on a stage, and you'll be the director. So it's kind of like your own mini movie. And just like a good director, you have to know when your actors are going to be on camera, how you want the scene portrayed, how intense or how mellow a shot should be, and most importantly, how everything will come together so that the audience can have a good experience at the theaters. I'd also like to add that the 12 principles of animation applies greatly to what we will be doing. Although the great Disney animators who outlined them focused more on character animation, it still holds true for motion graphics and UI animation. I won't be talking about the principles per se, but do know that the animations you'll be seeing today utilize, if not all, but most of them. So storyboard. Just like in the movies, it's crucial to have a storyboard. In a game development setting, I find creating a storyboard to explain how the UI screen will look and work to people very instrumental. Most people are visual, and having illustrations that they can see gets the point across more efficiently. For me, it's better compared to just explaining it by speaking or writing a document about it. Now, I'm not saying that you absolutely have to storyboard all the time. There can be simple things that can be understood right away, like, let's say, hey, all we need to do is a fade out on the confirm button once the players click it. But if it's a bit complex, then I advise you to do a storyboard. Waving your arms dramatically while trying to explain what it is that you're wanting to do could be very entertaining. But from experience, it doesn't get what you want to say immediately to everyone. But with a storyboard, you have a document that you can easily email to everyone in the development team. It saves you the time and effort to wave your arms dramatically again while trying to explain your vision to someone else. So for our level up UI screen, we've already identified earlier the important information that we need highlighted. And I've placed them on top of this slide and split them into 6 categories. So we got level up number, star achievements, score and currency, rewards, scrollable list for friends, and the CTA call to action buttons. I'll talk about how I did storyboards for each of them, and we'll show you the animated versions as I go along up until we get to the last category. I'll show the final UI animation after I've tackled the whole storyboard process. I haven't added any sound effects in the animations so that we can focus more on the motion itself. But do note, though, that sound effects on your UI elements, when done correctly, will elevate it more, and so will the player experience. For presentation purposes, I'll be talking about a category storyboard, and then we'll show you the animation. Do take note, though, that I highly recommend storyboarding the whole animation sequence first, and then animate once the storyboard has been approved. So we'll move on to the first one, which is level up number. I've grayed out the other areas of our UI screen so that we can focus on the elements that we will be animating. We've got the level up text, and we've got our ninja character to help us spruce up the animation. For celebratory UI screens like level ups, I recommend making the intro animation as good as it gets. If you can highlight the information that's on top of your hierarchy in a very creative manner, that's a pretty sure win. All right, so let's just start with the storyboard now. Okay, we'll start with the ninja dropping down. The ninja then reaches the floor, and then the ninja stands up, opens his eyes, and then we get to see some speed lines indicating that this is an epic moment. It is, since the level up text starts to appear. Once the speed lines disappear, we're now left with just the level up text and the ninja. This frame is important, as this shows the player the most important information in your UI, so make sure to give it some time to linger on the screen. So next, you can take out the important information out of the screen. So here the text disappears as it goes to the right. The ninja also follows suit and moves to the right. Do take note that we are setting up the level 10 text to disappear last. In the next panel, the level 10 starts to disappear. It's good that it's the last thing the players see for retention. Next, the ninja starts to slide back in with some of the background slowly appearing behind. The ninja still continues to slide back in, and the background also continues to animate. The ninja then halts to a stop, jumps up, while the background continues to animate behind. The ninja now settles down, and a speech bubble comes up with a level up text. The background has now finished animating and has filled up the whole screen. That's the end of the storyboard for the level up category, but I'd like to talk about the background animations concept a bit. So it will be animating like paper folding. It's an attempt to connect an origami concept to the whole sequence. I really wanted to add something related to origami to the whole animation, so this was a good way to show that. Playing with 2D or 3D environments where your UI will be is a good way to enforce the look and feel of what you're going for. Just like if you've got a sci-fi theme game, you want to add all of the tech stuff in the background, and that will make a big difference in terms of immersion. Okay, so now I'll play the resulting animation from the storyboard. Again, this is just for presentation purposes, and I advise you to finish the whole storyboard sequence first before you start animating. So here we go. Play that one. I'll play that in a loop so that you can see and review it more. In a real production setting, you will be playing your animation several times to check for any timing or pacing anomalies. But don't worry. It's perfectly normal to be staring the screen with buttons, moving in a loop for several minutes. Don't mind your coworker sitting beside you thinking you're going crazy, because that's okay. I've experienced a lot of times. All right, I think that's all good now. I'll stop the animation and then we'll move on to the next part. So here I've combined star achievements with score and currency because both categories are closely related to each other. This is a good example of tying up some parts in your UI to make players understand the connection between those elements. For this one, your score and currency increases if you get a star achievement. So the goal here is to make players understand that via your UI animation through motion. Let's go ahead and start with the storyboard now. Okay, firstly, a cardboard appears near the camera and then slams into its intended place on the screen. Speed lines come up to indicate it's an epic moment. The score appears and then animates. Once the score has settled, the currency then animates. At this point, you now have introduced the score and currency information to the player. The next part would be to let them understand that star achievements will further increase score and currency. To do this, we'll introduce the shurikens now. The first shuriken appears near the camera and moves towards the score and currency. This is an attempt to indicate that the shuriken is targeting the score and currency and will make changes to it. Once the shuriken hits the cardboard, the score will play a scale up and down animation while changing values. We will also make the ninja character here animate with eyes squinting or blinking once the shuriken hits. This will also help to make the player know that something is changing. Next, the currency will do the same animation while changing values too. A gleam on the shuriken will also be played at this point, just to indicate that the value change is finished. The second shuriken appears and does the same thing as the first one, and so does the third one. At this point, you have just finished introducing and tying up the two categories, score and currency, and start achievements in your sequence. I'll play the resulting animation for these categories. And I'll play the animation in a loop so you can see it more. So as you can see, the bounce on the cardboard that's holding the score in animation is helping with making sure that players notice the changes happening to the numerical values. The ninja animation is also there to help with making the slams of the shurikens more believable. The ninja's eyes blink whenever one hits the cardboard and does some subtle movements with its body as well. All right, I'll stop that now, and we'll proceed to the next category. I'll just do a quick water break. That's just my slide for water. I forget to drink water while I'm explaining storyboards, and it's very daunting. Okay, so we'll move on to rewards. For this category, we will be mellowing the animations down a bit. We still want to make it exciting since it's about rewards, but we will use this as a starting point for toning down the way the UI elements appear on the screen. So less elements slamming into place and no more speed lines. Those speed lines, by the way, are a tribute to manga and anime shows. Seems appropriate since we have a lot of Japanese-inspired elements in this presentation. So, okay, on the storyboard now. So for this, we'll see the rewards text come up first. It will be followed closely by the paper cutout that will serve as the background for the reward elements. I've added some numbers here, 1 and 2, just to indicate that there are offsets in the animation's timing. Now the first reward, which is a bag icon, appears near the camera and is about to settle on the paper cutout background. The paper cutout still continues to animate at this point. As the bag icon settles to its intended spot, the amount of it appears and animates to the right. The second reward, which is a fish icon, starts to appear and does the same animation as the bag icon did. All right, so the last reward, which is a chicken drumstick, starts to appear. That one's making me hungry. And does the same animation as the 2 previous icons. So yeah, you'll notice that there are no speed lines when the icons settle into their intended spots. And that is because we want the animation to slow down now, as I mentioned earlier. I won't show the resulting animation for this category since it's short, and we'll proceed to the next one, which is the scrollable list. But at the end of the scrollable list storyboard, I'll show its animation combined with rewards. Both have toned down animations, so it makes sense to bundle them up together. For this scrollable list, we would want to introduce animations that makes the player anticipate what its function is. So for the list, we could probably use something to tell them that it's scrollable. All right, let's move to the storyboard for this one. The friend's text just moves down first, and then a black cardboard that holds the friend's images appear and moves down too. It then splits. Then the friend's avatars appear and moves towards the direction of the cardboard closest to them. The friend's avatars move further away from the left and right. This is an attempt to make the player know that these elements can be moved to the left and right. The scroll indicator dots also start to appear at this point. All the friend's avatars now contract and then settle into their intended alignments. For this animation sequence, I was imagining a deck of cards that have been taken out of the box and then maybe spread out of the table. So here's the rewards animation combined with the scrollable list animation. Okay, let me play that in a loop so you can see more of it and review it more. And as you may have noticed, the animation of the elements here are more toned down compared to the others I've shown previously. You've got a little bit of impact on the rewards, but still subtle. And then we have just the scroll list animating smoothly. Okay, I'll stop playing this one so that we can go to the last one, which is CDA buttons or call to action buttons. Call to action buttons are important since without them, you usually cannot proceed to the next screen or the next phase of the game. You have to press or click them to be able to continue playing your game. So whenever these bad boys don't work, it usually ends up with bad player experience. Yeah, so I actually only have 2 panels as storyboard for this. I mean, the word buttons is already in the title of this talk, so I still think I did these buttons justice. But seriously, it's important to know when to make these call to action buttons appear. I'd advise you show them animating at the end of the whole sequence. Reason for this is to make sure that it's the last thing the user or player sees and will prompt them to respond to it more. Most UI animations that I've revised that had problems were solved by just making sure these CDA buttons are seen at the end. I won't show an animation for these anymore, but instead I'll show you the full level up animation. In this animation, we'll see all of the categories I've explained to you combined. Before I play it, I'll just like to remind you again that I've opted not to add any sound effects to it, so we can focus more on the animation side of things. All right, let's play this thing. I'll play it in a loop now so you can see and check it out more and review it more. Okay, so this is the product of everything that I've shared to you so far. I'd like to think that this animation has ticked the boxes of the things that were required from the project. From adhering to the overall art and creative direction, to making sure that the information the UI is telling the users is easy to understand with the help of motion. Right, I'll let that one play one more time so that we can get to the last part of the talk, so that we can get some lunch now. All right, part 3, the outro. This is the last part of the talk. It's all about just summarizing the whole thing that I've shared to you today. They are the steps that I encourage you to follow so that you can create your polished UI that has your super duper awesome amazing animation. So first we have defined the project and specs. We first ask what the project is all about. We did it so we can think of ways on how we can attack the project early on. Secondly, art and creative direction. In every art and animation you do, always go back and take a look at the pillars that were defined early on as the game's art and creative direction. Everything has to come together to create an immersive experience for the player. So just make sure to always remember that. Third, UI content and hierarchy. This is significant so that you can address the animation accordingly. It is crucial to know the information so that you can plan when the intense parts of your animation will occur and when to tone it down. And lastly, storyboard and animation. Creating a storyboard is important so that you can show and present your ideas easily to all the other game developers of different disciplines. Creating a UI screen usually involves almost all the departments, really, game design, art, and engineering departments. So creating something visual that everybody can look at is a great way to get your point across. And also, I've actually titled this last part outro because I haven't really showed you yet the outro for the level up screen. For the outro, I didn't create a storyboard slide anymore since I don't think you need one, right? I mean, something must have stuck after listening to me talk about this for almost an hour. So I bet by now you can easily do storyboards for this on your own. But anyway, I'll just, talk about what I want the outro to be. I was just thinking of, making the elements accept the ninja, move out of the stage and in offset timings. The ninja will be the last major UI element you'll see, since he was the first thing you saw in the intro. How's that for thinking ahead, huh? Okay, the ninja will probably do something that ninjas do when they disappear. Like maybe he drops some smoke pellets and then he disappears. Pretty much how ninjas do it. Or maybe he just teleports or something, like Naruto perhaps. Or, maybe he does something like what the Ninja Turtles do and jump into a manhole to escape into the sewers. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds crazy and think we can totally pull it off, right? So let's just do that one. Ninja Turtles remind me of pizza. I'm hungry, so let's do that. All right, I'll play the whole animation one last time. But this time, it'll have the outro. So here it goes. Yep, and thank you, everyone, for being here. And that was the last part of my talk. And I guess we should have some time for some Q&As.
Hey. Great talk, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
I was wondering if you animated all these elements in Engine or if you had to create them in another program and then import them in later. And how do you deal with these animations on different aspect ratios?
Okay, yeah, sure. Usually in a game production setting, it's always good to ask your engineering team or UI engineering team first if what is possible. So that is why I mentioned that creating a storyboard is crucial, because at that point, everybody in the art team will go like, yeah, man, that's pretty good, it's pretty slick. But, the coders or the UI engineers will go like, hey, you fucking crazy, that can't do that shit. But, so that's why it's very crucial to have that storyboard. So what I do is I create it using, for this one, I created using Animate, which is just a fancy word for Flash. I use that because the UI that we will be using for this game uses Flash as the main component for putting in the whole thing. But for mockups, like UI mockups, it's always good. It doesn't matter what computer program you're comfortable with. If you want After Effects to do it, do it. If you want Flash to do it or Animate, do it. But I found that in most game engines, in terms of UI animation, it's quite limited. So Flash actually has, it has basic stuff. So the more basic you can go and the more creative you can make it with just using basic motion, basic shapes, stuff like that, the better. So yeah, to answer your question, yep, I use that one first, and then depends on the game engine. Make sure to talk to your engineers as well. So, in terms of aspect ratios, yeah, talking to the UI engineers, that's where all of that will come in. So yeah, before really animating the whole thing, make sure you have that storyboard so that this is what I want to do. This is what's make it work. Do your magic, guys. I've done mine. Do your part.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you for sharing your storyboards. I'm just wondering, are your storyboards always this high fidelity, or do you have a previous sketch that's super rough and just exploring ideas and stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's as cool as that because this is a talk and I'm like, okay. I don't want to present my crappy drawings, but yeah, seriously, it's At first, I usually do it on paper, really, because when you're storyboarding, I mean, if you've got all of these great and good ideas, it's better to just grab a paper and draw it right away, because sometimes they flutter away for some reason. So it's always nice to sketch first on paper. Once you've actually that this is what you want, then go ahead and do a final pass on it. And then along the way, you might find that, yeah, maybe it should have added this particular scene or that scene and that scene. But, in the end, you'll come up with a very solid storyboard that way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, cool. If we don't have any other, oh, okay.
I'll just chat.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself collaborating a lot with the UX designer? Do they have input on timing and hierarchy of information, all that sort of stuff?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Basically, when the first guys that usually sees my storyboard is the artists and the UX designers. Because their inputs are really invaluable at that particular stage. So yeah, it's a very close collaboration with the UX designers as well, since they might be like, hey, why did you highlight this particular element more than the other one? So it's good that, early on in storyboards, you can still adjust and change that before you go ahead and do the final animation stuff. Yeah. Cool. If we don't have any other questions, we could go to lunch early, I guess.